All right, now we're recording. Okay, so we have increased the award amount for our project grants for organizations this year. The maximum award is $6,000. We'll talk a little bit more about that and partial funding as we go. So who can apply? 501c3 nonprofit organizations that are based in Rhode Island, registered in Rhode Island, or groups that are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Rhode Island. If you fall into, and I think we may have at least one person here that falls into that category of pursuing fiscal sponsorship, there's a lot more information about that on the website, and I'm happy to give you, follow up with you about that as well, if that's something that does apply to you. All right, timeline. Grants opened for applications on February 1st, which means you can go in and do your application anytime you want to now. They are due on April 1st by 11:59.00. Our grant portal closes not at midnight, but at 11:59 on the dot. We are not able to reopen it, and unfortunately, we're not able to accept late applications. So please do plan ahead enough that even if you are one of those pressure prompted folks doing this right at the last minute, you allow time for an attachment to not upload correctly and need to redo it and still have everything submitted by 11:59 p.m. The funding period we're talking about here begins on July 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. So what that means is that the funds that we are granting in this cycle must be used for project activities between those dates. Every year, we have someone come in and say, oh, but my project is on June 29th, 2025. And unfortunately, that is not something we can fund in this grant cycle. It has to be between July 1 and June 30. And that is because of the state's fiscal year and the requirements we have there. All right, so grant notifications we expect to send in mid-June of this year. And then the final report will be due July 31st of next year, about a month after the close of the project period. So what is a project? This comes up because sometimes folks approach us for season-long support or sponsorship. And that's not what we do through PGO. This is a project. So we define a project as a discrete set of connected activities that have a distinct beginning and an end. They could be one-time events, like I mentioned, a festival, a show, an exhibition, or a series like a roster of classes or thematically connected concerts, productions, art programs. And those might happen over the course of 6, 8, 10 months, but altogether they encompass one thematically connected project. So as I mentioned, the organization can't apply to support its entire season of programming because that would fall outside of our definition of a project. Something with a specific beginning and end has that thematic connection, etc. Any questions about that part? All right, so far so good. Good deal. So here are a couple of hypothetical examples of things that could count as projects. It could be a free day-long summer cultural festival at a public park with live performances and including Rhode Island-based performing artists. It could be an 8-week series of art classes led by a teaching artist at a social service nonprofit, again, based in Rhode Island, for 12 adults with developmental disabilities. It could be a weekend dance program for young people within a specific cultural community taught by artists or culture bearers from that specific tradition. So it can take a lot of different forms and shapes. As I mentioned before, understanding how it will engage the community is really valuable. There you go. As I just said, project value to the community. We want to know how folks will be engaged. And that is because we have a charge as the state arts agency of improving the lives of all Rhode Islanders through arts and cultural activity. And we so appreciate the work that you do and being able to support you in making that happen. All right, let's chat briefly about eligibility here. This may be something you've already taken a look at. So when you go through, you will need to have a unique UEI. This is something we have information about on our website. You can access these numbers. It's free. You don't have to do the full registration to get it. If you don't already have a UEI, you get it through sam.gov. Please don't just Google search for UEI because there are a lot of scammers out there. This is not something you have to pay for. So go to sam.gov to get your UEI. We do have a small grace period. So if you don't have your UEI at the time that you are submitting your application, reach out to me, let me know. We'll have you put 12 nines in place of the UEI in your application, but we will need to have it by mid-April in order to send your application on to panel. It's something that's required for us to be able to put that funding through. So I recommend going ahead and getting a start on that. And again, if you need any assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. Yes, question.
Could you please repeat the site?
Yes,
Sam did.
and this will be in my follow-up notes as well. I'll make a note to make sure I put it in there. It's SAM, S-A-M. S is in Sam, A is in art, and M is in Mary, .gov.
.gov. Sam.gov, that's it.
That's it. And it's a free process. I will put the URL and the instructions for that in the follow-up email I send as well.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. In order to be eligible, you cannot be receiving direct funding from another RISCA grant. You can't be requesting support in this cycle for this project or aspects of this project through another RISCA grant. And you cannot, as an organization, be applying for another grant at the same cycle. So basically, one RISCA grant at a time. That's the limitation here. Okay. And then also organizations that are a part of our general operating support for organizations program, you would know if you are not eligible to apply for our project grants. So that takes a swath of folks out and into a different program so that we can spread our support as widely as possible. Right. This computer has a mind of its own sometimes. In order to be eligible, your programs must take place in a place that is ADA compliant. You'll receive more information about this, and there's more information linked on our website. But this is a requirement for use of public funds. The funded portion of the project must take place in Rhode Island. Sometimes we have folks who are elsewhere who wonder if we might support them. But our charge is to serve Rhode Islanders. So the work must take place in the state. And then, and also in order to be eligible, you can't be delinquent on any final reports for previous grants. But since we know most, if not all of you are new to the program, that won't be an issue. And again, if you were, you would know. So don't fret about it if you aren't sure. All right. Again, you have to be a 501c3 with tax exempt status from the IRS, registered with the Rhode Island Secretary of State, which you will be if you are a nonprofit, governed by a revolving board of directors. And if you are not a tax exempt nonprofit, then you will have a fiscal sponsor. If you would like more information on eligibility, or if you're applying with a fiscal sponsor, you can find more information at arts.ri.gov. I will provide this URL in the email I send, so don't worry about getting it down, or you can drop me a line at any time. Some of you already have, which is wonderful, sarah.leonard@arts.ri.gov. Please reach out. I am there to help you. That is literally my job, and I love to do it. So please reach out and I will get you the best information that I can. All right, onward to funding. Any questions about eligibility before we move on? Okay, yes, one more question.
Sorry, I'm the question asker.
That's okay.
Is URI eligible?
URI, we have funded before. Let me find out for sure from my colleagues if there's anything special we need to do since it's public. But don't be concerned. I'll find out the details of how we make that work for our public educational institutions.
Okay. Thanks.
Judith, did you have a question also?
Oh,
Or
no,
were you just
no,
moving?
no, I just
Okay.
want to say that the sam.gov is not so easy. It's very time consuming.
It is taking a good bit of time. Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Anyone a good deal of time. Yeah, they have to leave a lot of time for that.
Okay.
What does UEI stand?
Um,
It's
I-
unique.
unique is something number,
Yeah,
unique
let me,
identifying,
It
it's a
stands
unique
for,
identifier essentially to ensure that the funds are all sort of connected. Let me provide that information to you in the follow-up email and we'll get that going
Thank you.
so that you all can get started on that. Thank you for that feedback, Judith. That's really helpful to know.
yeah.
All right. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but we do sometimes have these questions come up. So in addition to all grant expensed activities taking place in Rhode Island, we also want folks to know that all of our grant awards are contingent upon the availability of funds from the Rhode Island State General Assembly and the National Endowment for the Arts. I do also want to be clear that at this time, the NEA has not been targeted, and the current intelligence that we are receiving is that the most likely thing to happen for this year's funding is a continuing resolution, which would result in us continuing to have support from the National Endowment for the Arts for FY26. So that is the best information we have at this time. Should anything change, of course, we will let you know. But at this point, we are expecting steady funding as anticipated going into this grant cycle. All right, so the maximum grant award for this program, as I said, is $6,000, but partial awards are very common. Our commitment is that if you are awarded partial funding, it will be no less than either 50% of what your request was or $1,000, whichever is higher. Should you receive partial funding, you can and should adjust the anticipated program activities within the spirit of the original application. Of course, we do not expect you to be able to do what you could do for $6,000 for $3,000. Okay. So you can speak if you receive partial funding. If you have questions about that, you can drop me a line and let me know, and we can talk that through. I also want you to know that should you decide for any reason to turn down funding, if you say, I got partial funding, my other funding didn't come through, and I just don't think I can take this project on this year, you can turn down the grant and it will have no ill effects moving forward. Every year is a blank slate where your application is compared to the evaluation criteria. We have no blacklist. We have no naughty folks who declined funding in the past list. We will appreciate your honest assessment of your capacity, and there truly will be no ill effects. So if for any reason something changes, you receive funding and you choose to decline it, you don't need to worry about any negative repercussions from that down the line. All right. I already talked about partial funding, talked about that. And of course, if you do receive a grant, we have information on how to credit RISCA moving forward. This is a common question. What can we not use the money for? We can't use the money for capital improvement projects, construction or renovation of buildings, permanent equipment purchases. That is not what the project grants for organizations are for. We cannot use it to address, eliminate, or reduce existing debt or to contribute to your endowment. We love getting rid of debt and we love your endowment, but the project grants for organizations are for specific projects, as we talked about earlier. We cannot use these for development or fundraising expenses or for entertainment and hospitality, receptions, parties, galas, things like that. Of course, you may use events. The RISCA funds just can't be used for them. They cannot be used for prizes and awards for an event, person, or organization. They cannot be regranted. They can't be associated with a degree program for which academic credits received. Please no proselytizing or promoting religious activities or using them as part of a religious service. As I mentioned before, anything that would make it inaccessible and therefore incompatible with the provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act is not eligible. And expenses incurred or activity happening outside of the award period. So if you have something going on that lasts from June to August, our funding can only cover the part that's happening in July and August, right? So other funding would have to be used for the June portion of that. And again, those are restrictions that pertain to our state funding. Valerie, yes, question.
So I have a question regarding re-granting the funds to other artists or organizations. So if there was an organization that wanted to have a project with an organization that is already receiving, you know, the what is it, the grants for organizations through RISCA.
The general operating support?
Yeah, the general operating support. Could that organization not apply to this and then use those funds to pay for an organization that receives the general operating support?
So can an organization that's not receiving general operating support apply and then have a partner who is receiving general operating support? Valerie, I believe the answer to that question is yes, you can do that. So the general operating support organization cannot be the applicant. If they are providing some services and you are compensating them for those services, that's a bit different than re-granting, where you might be saying, okay, we want a theater festival to happen. So now you guys can apply to us and then we'll grant the money back out to these theater companies, right? You're saying we've designed a project. These folks are our partners in delivering these services. And so paying them for those services would be part of the budget. I will double check to make sure I'm correct on that. Which I do all the time since I'm new, just to make sure that I'm not giving you any incorrect information. But that is my understanding at this point, Valerie. So I will double check, but I believe that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
So if a single organization is applying for the grant and it stands to benefit other people with whom that organization is working in collaboration, so long as those other people are not themselves applying for risk of money of any sort.
So your organization can't apply for multiple grants. And if it were, say, an artist applying for a general operating, or let's not say that, let's say a Make Art grant, which is sort of one of the most open programs for artists seeking support, their application would be eligible based on the criteria that they are not receiving institutional support. They're creating that art outside the bounds of institutional support. So if they're creating it for something your organization is doing, the organization should apply and can compensate the artist for their time and work.
Right.
But we wouldn't have the same project because it can't be both part of an organizational project and outside the bounds of organizational support.
But if I would be applying on behalf of other people with whom I'm working to bring people in from the outside to speak, you know, this kind of a series, then, you know, it's still, my organization is the applicant, but it's others involved as a kind of coalition.
Okay. Yeah, they don't all have to be employees or board members or something like that of your organization.
Okay.
Okay, yes. Cindy?
Yeah, I don't know how to put the little logo, hand logo on here.
That's all right. We'll take a real hand.
Okay.
I just may not be able to see everybody on my screen. So if I don't see you, then flag me down. But I've got you, Cindy.
Okay. If we're having a performance for the anyone in the community, wider community, is the grant money eligible to be used for a tent rental? Because we're a farm preservation group, and so we don't have an approved indoor facility yet. So is tent rental, is that possible to use that as part
I
of the
think that
grant or
that would
not?
be fine. That's not really, that's not like a capital, you're not building a whole building or something like
No.
that. And
Because
I
the
will double,
weather's so different all the time, you never know.
yeah, I'll check that for you, but I don't anticipate that being a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm just making myself some notes so I make sure to circle back on any of these questions in case I am off base.
I have a
Yes.
Question about the ADA requirements. So we're gonna do artisan residency program and the artist will do some public events. So does the place the artist stays have to be ADA, or is it just where we have the public event?
My understanding is that anything that our funds are used for has to be ADA compliant, so that it would not be exclusionary to someone with a disability. But I will double check that for you as well.
Okay, that's great. And if we bring in, so we have an artisan residency thing. We get funding for our program in general, and then say we have an artist from Connecticut apply to be the artisan resident. Is that okay? Like our organization's getting the fund, but the artist.
As long as the work takes place in Rhode Island.
Okay, good. So it doesn't matter where the artists are from, it matters where that it takes place. Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yep, absolutely. And we had a question from iPhone 401.
Yeah, that's me, Gabriel
Great.
from the Colombian American Cultural Society.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you're here. What question can I answer for you or try?
Well, part of the questions he asked already. Can somebody said if I have an artist from Colombia, for example, but he's gonna participate here in Rhode Island, can I use the fund for it?
You cannot use it for travel expenses. So Sue,
No,
that
no,
would apply for you also.
Just to pay.
We can't use it for travel expenses for them to travel to the state or to the country. But as long as the work takes place in Rhode Island, it's my understanding that that's fine. Yeah, that's the limitation there.
Another question that I have is, can this fund be combined with something else? Like, say if I apply for I'm applying for the festival, for the Colombia Festival. And I also have a program that we teach dance to the Colombian kids.
So each organization can apply for only one grant from the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts per cycle. So if it's the same nonprofit organization applying, you'll have to choose one to apply for in this grant cycle.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, great questions. So let's chat about the application, what brought you here today. So things to gather as you prepare. Judith already tipped us off. We want to get started on that UEI process ASAP. And please reach out if you get stuck. My colleague Anissa, our grants manager, is the knower of many things related to UEIs and going through that process. So reach out to me. I can get you connected if you're getting stuck or having problems, but please do get started as soon as you can on that. So things that you will need to have on hand for your, yes. Was there another question?
No, I just gonna say something. I got something to it. To get that number or that ID, it takes a long time. If you don't have all the paperwork, it's gonna linger and linger until you get everything done. Especially they don't take PO boxes. You have to physical ID addresses, otherwise they give you a hard time. But you can get it. Actually, you can get it. It's not a big deal, actually.
Yeah, it can take some time, and thanks for the tip off about the physical address, because that's good to know. All right. Okay, so things to have on hand when you go to start your application. Your 501c3 determination letter from the Internal Revenue Service. And again, we'll double check this for URI and how we're going to handle it there. Your unique entity identifier. There you go. That's what UEI stands for. Entity is the word that was escaping me. Unique entity identifier. Again, if you don't have it yet, by the time the application is due, you'll enter all 9s in place of your UEI, but we will need it within a couple week window in order to be able to send your application on to the panel for evaluation. So that's a place where we have a little wiggle room, but not a whole lot. A recent Form 990, this is the tax return for nonprofit organizations. And then if you're using a fiscal sponsor, you'll need those documents for the fiscal sponsor. Yes.
Basically, I should have had my, the lady from URI was supposed to apply on my behalf. Could you repeat the things that you just said, or will there be a report where you send everything we need?
Yes, I will share all of this, and this is also all available on our website, and I'll show you where you can find it there as well before we finish today.
Okay, because I was trying to type, but I cannot type as fast.
You don't, yeah, you don't
Okay.
need to copy it all down. No,
Okay, thank you.
no worries. We'll get this all out to you. All right. On our website, and I'll show you where, you will find templates for your project budget and your project plan. Please use our templates. That's required. It's also an equalizer for the panel. So they're comparing apples to apples, you know, as they go through. Though, let me rephrase that, because I do want to make clear to you that our panelists are not comparing one project to another. Okay, so it's not like, hey, the guy down the street applied and I did too, and so I didn't get funded because the guy down the street did. They're applying the evaluation criteria to each project individually, creating scores, and those scores are what determine the funding, and we can talk more about that in just a moment. All right, you will need a bio or CV or resume. You decide what's appropriate for the artists involved. We'll have an opportunity for artistic work samples. You'll provide a list of work samples and a testimonial. For those work samples, testimonials, etc., we know that the artists that you will involve are going to be wonderful artists. Help the panelists understand their credentials for doing a project like you're proposing. Every wonderful artist is not a wonderful teacher for 8-year-olds, right? So if you're proposing that, help make that connection so the panelists are able to see, yes, they are particularly qualified to provide a really robust, wonderful artistic experience for the population that we're talking about. Okay, that's what you need to have on hand. Again, it's all on the website, and I'm going to show you where before we get off this call today. Evaluation criteria. So as I mentioned, we've simplified things. There are 3 categories in the application. The first is logistics. The second is artistic vibrancy and impact. And the third section is program specific. So these are our 3 categories across programs now. For this program, for project grants for organizations, that program specific piece is going to focus on engaging the community in meaningful ways. So in the logistics section, you will be telling the panelists what will be done, by whom, when and where will things take place, and how the project's going to happen both logistically and financially. You'll also indicate relevant metrics to measure your progress. In the artistic vibrancy and impact, this is where a lot of the meat of the application comes in. Make sure that you tell us that art is central to the project and how. You would be amazed how frequently we get applications where art is not at the center of it, but we are the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. And so it's going to be critical that we see how art is central to the project. We want to ensure that the artist or artists will be providing a purposeful and positive experience. That's where that comes in, with making sure we know that the artist is really well prepared to deliver on the content for the population that we're talking about in this project, if that's relevant. And then finally, this project provides access or engages underserved communities as identified by the National Endowment for the Arts, and that language is in our guidelines. This is raising a lot of questions that folks have given the executive orders that have come out. But as of this moment, Our current agreement with the National Endowment for the Arts still does include language about underserved communities. And there's a segment of our funds that go to those underserved communities, thinking specifically about geographies that are underserved, folks with disabilities, folks who might otherwise lack access. And that, as I said, that specific definition that comes from the National Endowment for the Arts is on our website. You'll be asked in the application, and we'll look at this to check off boxes about who all is included in your intended audience. And we don't anticipate any issues with that at this time. All right. And then finally, as I mentioned, program specific. So for us in PGO, that's going to talk, PGO is our shorthand for project grants for organizations. We're going to be looking specifically at how the project engages participants in making, experiencing, or learning about art, depending on your project. Okay, questions there. I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to switch over to the application form here in just a moment. Questions for me right now? All right, we're going to keep on cruising then. Let me get the right next piece up for us. All right. The technology makes this so smooth and seamless, doesn't it? All right, team. So here we go. Hopefully you are seeing my Google Chrome window here. Maybe. Oop. Maybe not. Give me just a second. That just pulled it out of where we need it to be. Oh my goodness. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, we'll start here. So this is arts.ri.gov. That's our website. And in particular, I have gone to arts.ri.gov/grants. If you just go to the overall webpage, you can see that grants have a tab up here at the top. This is our general grants page. It's where you can learn about all of our different grant programs if you want to. But what I want to point your attention to right now is these boxes on the left side of the page. You will see an online grant application portal for individual artists. That is not where we want to go. We want to go one more down to the online grant application portal for organizations. When you click there, you will get a lovely login page that looks like this. If you have done this before, you'll enter your email address and password. Or if you're like me, you'll enter your email address and then click forgot your password. Or if you're new to this, click create an account and you'll be prompted to do that. Okay, so we're going to go to online grant application portal for organizations. And then through, if you have created an account before as an artist, you'll still need to go through the organizations portal this time. Okay, those are two separate portals, and we want to make sure we've got you in the right spot. So good, so far, so good. All right, let me get the other window up now. Make sure I've got the right thing here. Okay, so once we are in, move this off to the side. We will log in here. And, oh no, when it's going to tell me that my session has expired. Sorry, folks, give me 1 second. Trying to do this all on my laptop instead of on the big screen is giving me just a touch of trouble. So give me just a moment here. And I will have it right back up for you. Any questions while I'm doing this?
I have a question.
Okay.
If I'm not doing the application, say my wife is doing the application, can she use her password and the email and her password, or has to use my password, my email and password?
It just depends on if you're already in the system. So if you're already in there with your organization using your username and password, that may be the simplest way forward. But she can also create her own account under her name and do it that way.
All right, thanks.
All right, you are welcome. All right, we're up and running again here, folks. Okay, so I have logged in a fictional account here. I'm just going to change this so you're all a bit smaller on the side of my screen, and so that we're looking at the same thing. So what I'm looking at here is, you can see I've started this a couple of times as I've walked through with folks. So I have gone in, you'll be asked to enter your user information. You'll be asked to enter some basic organization about, some basic information about your organization. And then we're going to go into the application. So you'll see I was able to hit edit application. So when you log in, you can save and come back to it. Just please, please, please make sure you hit submit before 11:59 on April 1st. All right, so you'll enter the basic organizational information, both about the individual user and the organization that you are representing. And then we'll get into the application. When you first log in, you're going to see a set of options of our different grant programs. So make sure you scroll down to Project Grants for Organizations and click Apply. So you'll have a little reminder here about what resources you need to have. It's going to point you to the guidelines, should you need them, to the evaluation criteria. So that's a great tip. I highly recommend looking at the evaluation criteria before you get into your writing, because it lets you see exactly what the panelists are going to see. It lets you know exactly what they're being asked to rank your proposal based on. And there are also links here to the project plan template, budget template, all the templates you're going to need. My strong, strong, strong recommendation, and I would even go so far as to say request of you, is to write your responses in a Word document and then cut and paste them into this. You can save your work, but we all know websites crash sometimes, and I don't want you to lose it. So I highly recommend writing it in Word. That's also going to let you check your character count, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then you can cut and paste into the application form. So this first section, you'll see it says info for risk staff. The only thing that the staff is going to do is provide an eligibility check. So we're going to make sure that your application is complete, and we're going to make sure that you meet the eligibility criteria. And if the answer to both of those things is yes, on you go to the panel. And for our program and most programs, there will be a set of 5 panelists. Here's what you can count on from those panelists. A, there will be at least 1 artist in every group. But you can also count on the whole group being folks who already share a core belief in the value of the arts. You will see that your character count is limited, and that is not something you need to spend your time convincing them of. This isn't a general funder. These are already folks who are engaged with the arts and believe in the power of the arts. So talk to us about your project. You don't have to make the bigger case here. The other thing you don't have to convince our panelists of is that artists and arts administrators should be paid for their work. So you can build that into your budget, and you don't need to spend a lot of time justifying why an artist needs to be paid. That is a shared value that the panelists will already have. All right, so back to the application. We've already talked through during the course of our session the eligibility. So we're just going to do a check here. Are you a nonprofit organization based in Rhode Island? We said, yes, we are. Our fictional organization of Harmony Arts Rhode Island, absolutely. But if I was using a fiscal sponsor, I'd just click on the drop down here and change that to yes. We'll walk you through those key eligibilities. You'll check them off as you go to say, yep, we meet all of these. And that will be important. If you do not yet have that unique entity ID, What we're asking you to do here is say, yes, I'll reach out to Sarah and we'll be in touch. It's helpful for me to know we don't have one, we're in the process of getting it, so that we can be in touch as we go, and I can remind you how to enter that.
Not just a blank,
So rather than a blank, you'll enter 12 nines, just 99999, because they're 12-digit numbers. You'll enter
99999.
Yep, all till you get to 12 of them. Okay. You're going to give us the name of your organization. You can see right here, Harmony Arts Rhode Island. Again, this is a fictional organization, did not have their UEI, so they entered 12 nines. This is where you will enter, you'll upload your 501c3 letter of determination saved as a PDF, please. Do check those file types. If it's the wrong file type, it may hang up your ability to actually press submit and get it in. Okay, so a PDF of your 501c3 determination letter, a PDF of your latest form 990, 990EZ, or 990N, depending on your organization. Those are different forms that can be used depending on the budget size of your organization. You'll upload that for us. And you'll tell us whether you are willing to accept partial funding. You'll recall I said that partial funding would have a minimum on it of 50% of the request or $1,000, whichever is higher. So if you request $4,000, it would be $2,000 if you received partial funding. This, and it says it here and it's underlined, but I really want to emphasize, the panel will not see your answer to this question. So it will not impact their scoring in any way. This is for staff so that depending how the scores come back, we know where we are. Okay. All right. So that whole section is only seen by me. I'll be doing the review, or our grants assistant Tess will, but this is something that our program staff only see. The next session, information for the panel, is where we get into those 3 areas I mentioned before. So we begin with logistics. You'll be sharing the name of your organization. If you have a DBA or you're doing business as with another name, you can enter that here as well. We'll ask for your organization mission. Give us a brief 2 to 5 word title for your project. And then we're going to ask for your project summary. And look at this, a summary in 2 to 3 sentences. Okay, this is real brief. So here's our example in our fictional project. We'll be hosting Harmony in the Park, though. Please catch this. Try not to use we, because for the panelists, they're reading 20 to 25 of these. Please try to name your organization. So we could say Harmony in the Park will be hosting a festival of the same name. It's a free day-long cultural festival in this park at this time, which is in the bounds of the funding period. And here are the key features. Right, 2 to 3 sentences there. You get 500 characters, and that includes spaces. So when you do your character check in Microsoft Word, which you can do, make sure you're looking at the number that includes spaces in the count. You're going to give us the amount of money that you're asking for. For our fictional project, we want the full amount. We're going to ask for $6,000. You'll let us know when the project's taking place. Again, we'll have a reminder here of when our fiscal year runs. The project location, if you don't know yet where it's going to be, tell us as much as you can, or just tell us it's not confirmed yet if you don't know. Judith, no problem. We'll follow up with the notes. Thanks for coming. All right. So this is where you will indicate intended participants or audience. All of our intelligence is that there's nothing you need to worry about here in terms of identifying specific communities, because this is all the folks you anticipate participating either as creators or enjoyers of, appreciators of the art. So if you're talking about the artist residency program, this might include the artist, but it would also include the people that you expect to attend in the public facing portions of the program. So we have lots of categories here, but of course it's not exhaustive. So if you want to say there's another population or community, please check other and you'll provide that answer to us. We want to know the names of the artists involved. We understand that there could be a situation, say for an artist residency, where you don't know yet. Maybe you're currently accepting applications. So give us the best information you have and let us know what's going on. So in our imaginary project, we have quite a number of artists, and so we've listed them all for you here. We're also going to list any partner organizations and their roles. I will point to the asterisk. That means it's a required field, which means there probably should be artists involved because this is going to be an arts project, right? Note also that we do define art and artist very broadly. All right, this is where you're going to upload your project plan, and we'll take a look at where you can find those templates again. Let me just pull this up and we'll take a quick peek at it right now. So here is our PDF of our project plan. This is what the template looks like. So we're giving a date or a time frame, what the task is, and the description. Okay, pretty straightforward project plan. I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. I mentioned the metrics for success. So you should not have all of these as your goal. So for ours, we said we want to look at the number of participants, how satisfied they were by the experience, and the artistic growth of the participants. We are not asking you to go into great detail about how you will be measuring this. At this time, we're just asking, what will you be measuring? How will you define success? If you click other, we'll ask you to let us know what those are. Budget, the template is provided on the website and you can link to it from the top of the application. You're going to read again through what the funds can't be used for and agree to those limitations. And we'll pull up our sample budget. And again, I'm going to look at this quite briefly because of our time. So you will see, for example, artist fees. So if you are paying artists, that's wonderful. We encourage that. That's different from regranting. Administrative fees, etc. The key here is to ensure that they are focused on this project. But these are the administrative fees for this project, etc. Okay. And then artistic vibrancy and impact. This is where you get to do your writing. This is where you get to make your case to the panelists. So take a look at those eligibility criteria. And you will see, I'm going to highlight this so you can see exactly how long it is. That is 555 characters over the limit. And that's all that's there. I can tell that because right under the box, it's going to tell me I'm 555 characters over the limit of 1,000. It will not let you submit. Okay, there. Oh, now it's showing up in a red box. Now it's very excited. Okay. So that's where you can look for your cues. And again, how will the artist or artist provide positive and purposeful experience? Character limit is 1,000. We're not trying to hamstring you here. We are trying to focus you. So again, remember what I said, you can count on folks knowing the value of the arts. You can count on folks understanding that artists and arts administrators need to be paid. So we want to hear about this project specifically. Use those evaluation criteria and determine what are the things that this panel most needs to know about my project. How does this project provide access to or engage underserved communities as defined by the NEA? Again, that definition is going to be available in the guidelines. And you'll see here the applicant has basically done bullet points. That's okay. So if that's going to be a more efficient way to let us know what we need to know, that's perfectly fine. We're going to ask again for the bio, resume, or CVs of all of the artists involved. However, if you have more than one, please do merge those into one PDF. So it's all uploaded together here. There's also the option to link websites, social media, etc., if those are available. And you'll provide both a list of work samples, and exactly what you need for that is listed there, and documentation of up to 3 work samples itself. Okay, and there are details about what that can include. And you can submit those to us in a Google Drive folder. If you need assistance with that, just reach out and let me know. And then finally, we have our question about community engagement. So how does the project actively engage participants in making experience or learning about art? So that's the last question. You can upload testimonials. And then again, this is for staff only. We'll ask for your congressional district. And finally, the assurances, which are basically letting you know the terms and conditions, linking you to what those are, ensuring that you do retain the property rights to any art that's created as part of the project, or the artist does, etc. So you will certify that you have read that, you will sign, you will date, you will note that you can save your application at the bottom of the page if you want to come back to it. And please, please, please make sure you hit submit before 11:59.00 on April 1st. All right, I've kept you 2